If you're a beginner and you keep hitting the net in tennis, there are usually a few specific reasons behind it, and I say that as someone who still does it, but the difference now is I'm starting to understand what actually causes it, instead of just thinking it's random, because early on, it really does feel random. One ball goes in, the next one drops into the net, and it just feels like inconsistency. But the more I've practiced, the more I've realised it's not random at all. There are patterns behind it, and once you start to see those patterns, it becomes much easier to fix. The first thing is hitting too flat. This is probably the biggest reason beginners hit the net. When you try to be more aggressive, it's natural to focus on hitting through the ball, but if you do that without adding any shape, your margin becomes very small. The ball travels low over the net. So if your timing is slightly off, or your contact point isn't perfect, the ball just doesn't have enough height to clear. That's why it feels inconsistent. It's not that you suddenly got worse, it's just that the shot has almost no margin for error. The second thing is spacing. This one is easy to miss because it doesn't feel like a big mistake, but if you're too close to the ball, your swing gets restricted. You can't extend properly, and more importantly, you can't swing up. And that upward motion is what gives you height and topspin. Without it, the ball naturally stays low. So even if everything else feels okay, the ball still drops into the net. And once I started paying attention to this, I realized how often I was slightly too close. The third thing is movement, because hitting when you're static is completely different to hitting on the move. When you're standing still, you have time to set up, but when you're moving, everything speeds up. If your feet aren't set when you hit, your contact point drops, your swing becomes rushed, and again the ball goes into the net. So it's not just about the swing itself, it's about how well you get into position before you swing. Another thing that makes a difference is hesitation. If you're not fully committing to the shot, you tend to guide the ball instead of swinging freely, and when you guide it, you lose that upward motion again. The shot becomes flatter and shorter, and that usually leads to the net, so confidence and commitment actually matter more than you might think. So what actually helped me start improving this? The biggest change was adding topspin, not trying to hit harder, just focusing on getting the racket below the ball and then swinging up and through. That creates shape, and that shape gives you margin. The ball clears the net more comfortably and then drops back into the court. So now you don't need perfect timing every time. You've built in a bit of forgiveness. This is where repetition really helps, because this isn't something that clicks instantly. You need to feel it over and over again, and using a consistent feed makes that much easier, because you're not reacting to different balls. You can focus on one thing at a time. One useful type of drill is a fixed point drill. Same ball, same position, repeating the same shot. This is where you can really focus on the upward swing path and building topspin. Then you can progress to a moving drill. So now you're working on spacing and getting into position while still maintaining that same swing, because that's where things usually break down. Another good option is alternating forehand and backhand, because it forces you to reset each time. You can't just rely on one side. You have to adjust, set your feet again, and apply the same idea across both shots. You can also work on stepping into the ball more deliberately, making sure you're not rushing, but actually getting into a position where you can swing freely. Because if your feet are rushed, the shot usually follows. I'm still working on this. I still hit the net, but it's happening less now. And the main difference is I understand why it's happening. So instead of just getting frustrated, I can adjust something, whether that's adding more shape, creating more space, or getting set earlier. If you're dealing with the same problem, focus less on hitting harder and more on creating margin, more shape, better spacing, and better positioning, because that's what gets the ball over the net consistently. And if you want to see how this develops as I keep working on it, follow along, because I'm still figuring this out myself, and that's kind of the whole point.